Lesson 11. We laid the foundation with yama niyama, which are the first two limbs of yoga. The third limb of yoga is asana. So today we formally discuss the subject. We've talked about it a lot already, of course, since the beginning of the course. It is abundantly clear that asana means standing still. So any yoga practice that involves constant movement, as you see in many modern yoga classes, technically it's not asana. Why this is important is not just superficial reason, but it's really about not obtaining the intended goal, which is, of course, sattva, energy, being generated and directed in a certain direction for a certain purpose, for awakening of consciousness. The words mindfulness are often being used. Yoga is, in fact, a practice of mindfulness. And to achieve that, we not only stand still, but we practice in silence. That's another thing that is very rare these days in modern yoga classes. They always play music. And there's nothing wrong with music. It's just that yoga is an internal practice, not an external practice. In the gym, you exercise, you have pumping beats to stimulate you, that's fine. But yoga is designed to turn your attention inwards. That is where consciousness starts. That is where self-study starts. Music brings your attention outwards, as does a teacher who talks a lot about details. Many teachers feel compelled, and it's also part of their teacher training course, to explain about the muscles, about the joints and the organs and all the health benefits that each particular exercise has to offer. They're described in the book. But that's not what yoga is about. It's a pleasant side effect that you become healthier and stronger and all the other benefits that we have from yoga. But we need to practice in silence. And of course, it's important to correct when necessary. We have to talk a little bit now and then. But for the rest, we need to do our exercise in silence. Asana. And of course, meditation. Even worse, although that's not the subject today. But many teachers continue to talk even during meditation. And then they say, yeah, that's guided meditation. There's no such thing as guided meditation. It may be pleasant. It's just technically not meditation. Meditation is something that you have to do on your own. And the reason for that is it's mind training. So guided meditation can be very relaxing, but it doesn't train your mind. So in silence and on your own. There are many aspects to your practice. One thing is, of course, it's mentioned before, if we really want to benefit from our yoga practice, it is important that we do it on a fairly regular basis. It doesn't have to be 7 days a week, but at least fairly regularly. Because yoga brings about a condition. A condition that you lose when you don't practice. If you practice fairly regularly, you build up a condition and you maintain that. Now, we live in a fast-paced world and many people struggle with regular practice because we only gather here once a week. That means the other 6 days you're on your own. You have to find yourself an opportunity to integrate it into daily life. The best way to do that is to find a fixed time to practice, so that it becomes a routine. You do not have to, the moment that you have to think about it, there is always this subconscious voice inside you that tries to find excuses not to do it, to postpone it until tomorrow, and then tomorrow you find another reason to postpone it until the next day, etc. The mind always is very skillful at finding excuses. Very tricky. If you make it a fixed part of your daily routine, it's much easier to engage in a fairly regular practice. When I started practicing yoga, I did it every evening before going to sleep. Later, because life changed, I started doing yoga every morning. It's just I have designed my life in such a way that there is enough room to do so. So if you have a job, you try to get up a little bit earlier than usual and find some time to practice yoga. If you have a family to take care of, then you make sure that your family is taken care of, and then you can make some time to practice before anything else, before doing other chores, etc. So, ideal is either in the morning when you start your day, or in the evening when you end your day. Of course, anything in between goes, if that works for you. Every individual situation is simply different. So you figure that out simply by trial and error. You experiment, and if it doesn't work, you change. You try something else. Now, asana, I started actually with the word mindfulness, and that is important here. We practice in silence. But there is a typical approach to asana practice. You see in the handout written that you start with a mantra. And in between brackets, I think it says, which is the name of the exercise, the Sanskrit name. Then after finishing the asana, you finish with a mantra, Om. Forget about the word mantra, it's a widely misunderstood concept, but what mantra really means is mindfulness. There is a popular practice of mantra singing in New Age circles. But that is not mantra. Mantra means indoctrinating yourself with a single word that at that point in your life is very important for you. So simply singing without contemplating the deep meaning of the words that you sing is not mantra. Mantra is mantra when you deeply infuse yourself, not just with the meaning, but the essence of the word. Example, the word yoga. If you find it difficult to practice yoga on a fairly regular basis because there are so many things to be considered and taken care of, so many duties and responsibilities, write down the word yoga on a big piece of paper and put it on the wall of the room where you spend most of your time. That is mantra. Every time you look at the word, you feel it. It's not just a mental thing, but you feel it. And it will actually stimulate you to do what is important. Of course, meaning if it is important. But most people who know yoga, who understand yoga, who have experienced yoga, they realize that it's something that they want to have in their lives. So it is important. You put the word on the wall, and you're constantly being reminded of it. And that is when you infuse yourself with the essence of a word. That is what real mantra is. In this case, it means there are several exercises now that you already know. If an exercise is new, it doesn't work. You first have to feel it. You first have to undergo it. So after the introduction of a new exercise, from next time onwards, every time before you do an exercise, you stand in Tadasana, or you sit in Dandasana, or you lie on the floor, whatever, if it's standing or sitting or lying exercise, whatever the starting pose, you close your eyes for a moment and you repeat the name in silence and you say, Vriksasana. The moment that the vibration is felt, your memory kicks in. Not your mental memory, but your intuition. Because you've done the exercise before, you know what it feels like. So you trigger that memory of what it felt like and how the steps that you take to build up the pose before you stand still. So it's very deliberate and very intentional. And that is where mindfulness begins. This is the practice of mindfulness. That may sound a little bit circumspect, how do you call it? Very elaborate, unnecessarily, but it has a huge impact on our daily lives. Because when you integrate this kind of approach into your yoga practice, it is simply part of your yoga practice, so it's necessary that we do integrate that. You integrate it into your daily life, activities, at work, at home, with your hobby and your duties and whatever it is that you do. You simply become a more mindful person. It is not, the system of yoga in itself is not important. People are worshipping yoga as if it were something divine. That is totally beside the question. The real importance is how it transforms us. And it does transform us. The things that we do in class and in our daily practice on the mat change the way that we live our lives. And that is the essence, that is the point. That you finish with Om, that does not mean that you sing Om. It means that you close your eyes for a moment and you just savor the feeling that the pose left you with. So you come out of the pose, before doing anything else, before going on to the next pose, you just close your eyes for a moment and you take a deep breath and you feel the energy spreading and settling down. And if it is correct, if you have done the asana correct, you feel sattva. And sattva, or harmony, is a sense of well-being. It is a pleasant feeling that engulfs you. It is this that makes people who are susceptible to it addicted to yoga. It is what made me become addicted to yoga. That nice feeling of sattva. And it is also the reason why I refuse to go along with modern yoga. As nice an exercise as it is, it does not lead to sattva. Does not lead to that nice sense of well-being. And why sattva is important is not only for that nice sense of well-being, that is just a pleasant side effect. But when there is sattva, energy rises up, leading to all kinds of other amazing developments. We will talk about that after, in lesson 12. When you practice yoga, if you just had a meal, there are two major reasons why it won't go so well. The first is digestion is a major activity for the body. So it takes up a lot of energy to digest food. Energy that is not available then for yoga. So better digest the food first, a couple of hours if it is a big meal, and then engage in yoga practice. The other thing is, of practical concern, it will be in the way. With all the twists and bends that you do, if your stomach is full, it's gonna hurt. Or in and around your stomach, it's really in the way. In the morning, of course, when you wake up, you wash yourself, brush your teeth, go to the toilet, etc. the ideal time to practice. Or if you don't eat dinner too late, so you have a couple of hours to digest, then before going to sleep is ideal. Asana is also not about a perfect pose. There are a couple of aspects to consider here. Asanas that are easy are often preferred by not only practitioners, also by teachers. I've noticed that among the teachers that I hired in the past. If you are truly a yogi, which means that you are stubborn, because we become strong-willed and stubborn naturally as a result of yoga practice, you will take up the glove. You will pick up the glove and take the challenge when there is a new exercise that is actually not so easy to do, or maybe even almost impossible. The reason why is because an exercise that is easy may be comfortable, but it doesn't have much to offer. We practice yoga for the benefits. We learned about the practice of tapas, austerity, subjecting ourselves to discomfort in order to become more comfortable, stronger, healthier. If it is correct, you feel attracted to those exercises that you have difficulty with, for the simple reason that they have most to offer. Not only physically, especially not only physically, but also the mental process. Because we have a tendency to feel imperfect when we can't do a pose well in the beginning. We have a tendency to feel like a failure, to be disappointed. And it is exactly those things we need to transform into a positive thought. We learned contentment, non-desire for that. So when we do asana, when we bump into a difficult one, we don't skip it and do an easier one instead. We play with it. We play with our body and see what we can do and how far we can go. And then we practice contentment and we say, well, I tried. And it is already a little bit better than yesterday. And that from there you can only grow. From there on you can only develop. But we need to avoid the trap of comparing and wanting to be perfect. One of the things that you see with modern yoga books and videos is that they are all filled with pictures, photographs of professional athletes who switched to yoga. Ballet dancers, gymnasts, people with perfect bodies, super flexible and strong. So when you watch a video like that or open a book with photos like that and you try to emulate the exercises that they do, you will inevitably run into your limitations. And it will maybe, if you don't pay attention, if you're not aware of how you are reacting, you will throw the book into the corner, never to touch it again. We talked about purity, saucha. As an author of a book, you don't make photos to show off your perfection in the poses. Because you know and understand that it is going to disappoint a lot of people who are not capable of doing what you are capable of. What is important is the benefit that the readers of your book or the watchers, the viewers of your videos can have from your work. So instead of trying to impress people with your perfect poses, integrate into your teaching the idea that you must follow your own body, that you must follow your own abilities. And most importantly, that you must not feel bad or disappointed or like a failure when you're not able to perfectly perform a pose. The psychology behind all this is much more than the exercise alone, and hardly ever present in most yoga classes. Well, in the fourth paragraph you see something about a quote from the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. We will start reading this starting from next week. And this quote, to make it complete, says, stay away at least one arrow shot, one bow's length, whatever word they use, away from rocks, water, and fire. And you read the handout. The fire is not mentioned. The rocks are mentioned on the next page, that the room must be wide enough and high enough and clean and what have you. Stay away from water, because water influences our body, because we exist out of water. That is true. We will come back to that later also when we discuss the chakras. But rocks, water, and fire are the elements connected with the lower three chakras. This is crucial. The lower three, we haven't studied the chakras yet. We will come to that. Starting from next week. Next week we will start with the chakras and the Kriya exercises. So when the Hatha Yoga Pradipika says stay away from earth, water and fire, or rocks is earth, solid matter, earth, water and fire, it's not literal, because nothing is literal in the book. Everything is symbolism, indirect language. It means all your basic needs must be met. Earth, water and fire is your lower emotions and desires. That is your instinct to survive, fear, emotions, sexuality, but also ego and ambition, which are in the third chakra from below. Why is this important, and what does this have to do with yoga? If you want to thrive from your yoga practice, first of all, your basic needs must be met. You must have proper nutrition, so your food needs must be met. You must have a safe environment in which you practice. If you practice in an environment where thugs are running around the country that raid your monastery or temple where you are living, you can't focus on spiritual development if you are constantly fearing for your life. So your basic needs must be met, but also distractions must be avoided. That is why most monasteries and temples are unisex. Either men or women are living there, so that you don't have the complications of relationships. There's nothing wrong with relationships, but if you are pursuing spiritual development, at least temporarily, you should just completely focus on that and try to keep all other distractions out. So that is what avoiding or staying away one bow length arrow shot away from earth, water and fire. We will come back to that, but basically this is what it is about. Try to avoid distractions and fulfill your basic needs. Then you will thrive, and it truly works like that. That is also the environment that you try to create if you have a child, a baby. Your baby thrives if all the basic needs are met and all possible distractions are avoided. Your child will thrive emotionally, but also intellectually. He will do very well in school, but the moment that the child has an unstable environment and suffering from anxiety, insecurity, instability, it's going wrong. The child will not perform well in school and will not develop well into a emotionally mature adult. So it's not only for us as yogis important, it's actually important for everybody. It's also how I approached my dogs, which were traumatized, and there was just nobody who knew how to deal with them. And I just put yoga into practice. Just daily routine, fixed. I never raised my voice, never raised my hand, even more so, and just provide a safe, stable environment, all basic needs met, lots of food and healthy food and snacks and much love, lots of cuddles, even though they found it hard to receive. Just keep cuddling them. And you look at them now and you will never see that you will never recognize that they were very troubled dogs 4 years ago. So this is for everybody important, for anybody. The same kind of principle you also apply to people who, for example, got lost in drug abuse. You have those documentaries or news articles on TV where people live in the street, addicted to drugs, alcohol, and what have you. When such a person chooses to leave that behind, very often they fail. And they fail because they just don't have the basic necessities fulfilled that they need to start growing and thriving. So it works for all people like this. For us, we have to create this for ourselves in order to thrive from our yoga practice in the best possible way. Yoga practice fails when you eat too much, but also when you exert yourself too much. Excessive, rigid discipline also makes yoga fail. Well, about eating, we just talked about that. Eating takes up a lot of energy. If you eat much, that energy is simply not there for spiritual endeavor. It is the reason why the fakirs, the sect called fakirs, we talked about that when I told you the anecdote of Buddha, Gautama the Buddha, who joined the sect of fakirs. They're emaciated, they eat very little food. And the reason why they do that is so that they have all their energy available for spiritual endeavor. That is, of course, very extreme. It can lead to harm. So we need to find a middle way. But eating lots of food simply costs energy. That is why when you have a copious meal at a nice restaurant with your favorite food and you take a second serving, you enjoy it very much, but then comes the man or the woman with the hammer. You feel tired. You need a cup of coffee. But better, just digest your food and start again. And enjoy the food most of all when you're at it. When you exert yourself too much, yoga doesn't work if you practice yoga for hours, physical practice, just exhausting yourself. You can do that in the gym if you sometimes need that just to let off some steam, break a good sweat. But when you practice yoga, it's not about exerting yourself to the max. It's about control, it's about generating energy. And when you push yourself too hard, when you exercise too long and too hard, you're wasting a lot of valuable energy. So yoga is yoga. You do that in a particular way. If you need to do something that costs a lot of energy, just keep that separate from your yoga. The reality is, with many yogas these days, people do sweat a lot because there's a lot of exertion there. And again, it's a nice exercise, everybody needs that, but when it comes to yoga, better do it in accordance with how it was designed, because then it actually really works. It leads to miraculous developments. And about discipline, we talked about how do we integrate yoga into our lives in such a way that we can practice fairly regularly, because otherwise it doesn't work. We all know that there is this need to at least engage regularly. Discipline comes into the picture. A discipline in itself is not bad. Without discipline, we don't achieve anything. But when discipline becomes rigid, what's supposed to be good for us turns against us. You start to hate that what is good for you. If you say to yourself, you discover yoga and you say, wow, this feels so nice, I'm going to do this every day. And 6 o'clock every morning you jump out of bed, you take a cold shower because you read somewhere that that's healthy, and you do yoga for an hour, and you do that every day, 6 o'clock, cold shower, yoga. I guarantee you that if you approach it in such a way, within 3 weeks you start to hate even hearing the word yoga. It doesn't work like that. And yet we think, but if we do it regularly, that's how it works best. How do you approach that? First, just be human. Try to practice regularly, and then when there is a day that you feel lazy, you feel you need a break, allow yourself the luxury of skipping your practice. But you have become mindful, because one thing that happens with every practitioner of yoga is we become conscious of our condition much more than before. So you allowed yourself the luxury of not practicing today, even though it was kind of intended to be done. You just skip for today. What happens is you feel different. I used to practice every evening, but I did allow myself sometimes not to do yoga before going to sleep. And I would enjoy it, but then I would wake up the next morning and feel different. And that is where my discipline came from. I would allow myself not to practice when I felt a little bit lazy, but I would also very consciously notice how I felt different the next day because I didn't practice. And that would make me be determined to do it again that very day at the end of the day in the evening. Even feeling resistance, feeling lazy again, I would simply say to myself, yeah, but I skipped yesterday and it didn't feel so good this morning and I want to feel good again, so let's do it again. It's called self-motivation. It's called, it's discipline that occurs in a very natural way, not in a rigid way, in a very natural way, based on your experience. That is the right way to approach discipline, not only in yoga but in everything. Based on the premise, the idea, I'm only human. Okay, I'm lazy. Allow me to skip. But then you feel how it affects you, and that will be the reason to be motivated for your next practice. It really works, and it allows you just to you know what happens if you approach it in a rigid way? You block your energy circulation. You become tense, you become stressed, you become an unpleasant person, I can say. You become tight, nasty. Because you're nasty to yourself, you become nasty to your environment. That is really never what yoga is about. And if you can accept yourself as being imperfect and only human, you will extend that also to your environment, and it creates a totally different picture of who you are and how people will perceive you. What makes yoga work is steadfastness, effort and dedication, courage, true knowledge, belief, faith and confidence, and detachment from people's company. We will come back to this when we read the Hatha Yoga Pradipika. What makes yoga fail? Eating too much, too many distractions, rigid discipline. What makes yoga work is steadfastness, dedication, courage, true knowledge, confidence and faith, but also detachment from people means you need to reserve some time for yourself. You need to make time for yourself. You deserve that. And not only do you deserve that, you need that to make yoga work for you. If you live in a house with other people and you try to do yoga while other people go about their activities, watching TV, walking around the house, cooking or playing games, or it's definitely going to disturb you. So you have to plan. If you share a house with other people, you have to plan your yoga practice in such a way that you, when other people are outside, and you can have the house to yourself. Or in the evening when they are sleeping, or in the morning when they are still asleep. Questions? Asana? All right. Let's have a short break.